He says, you know what? You ought to let me hypnotize you. I go, I had no idea what he's talking about. He goes, look, it'll help you. I said, okay. So he spent a few sessions with me and literally got me to the point to where when I heard the bell go off, I would go into that zone. I don't remember any of my fights to this day. He would hypnotize people, which was not called hypnosis at that time. He would stare people in the eye and people would call it getting mesmerized. And that's where the word mesmerized came from. When you allow yourself, because hypnosis is a destination, it's not something that I do to anybody. What I do is I set up the criteria to lead them into that state, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. The person has to allow it to occur, even though anybody can be hypnotized.
All right, welcome. We have with us today kind of an interesting guest, Mr. Wayne Walker, who is a carnivore hypnotist, which is you'd be the first hypnotist I've interviewed. So maybe you'll hypnotize me. I don't know if you can do that.
I can do that.
You can do that over the internet. That would be interesting to see how that.
I do it all the time. I have clients all over the country.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess first of all, maybe it's interesting. How did you get into hypnotism? What prompted that?
Well, when I was my younger days, I was I started martial arts when I was 11, and I started kickboxing competitively when I was 16, 17 years old. And I was training one night, and when my best friend brought a friend of his up to watch my training, and he happened to be a psychologist who also was a hypnotist. So after my training, he come up to me and he says, you know what? You ought to let me hypnotize you. I go, I had no idea what he's talking about. He goes, look, it'll help you. I said, okay. So he spent a few sessions with me and literally got me to the point to where when I heard the bell go off, I would go into that zone. And I didn't come out of it until either the knockout occurred or the bell rang to end the fight. And when I came out, I don't remember any of my fights to this day. None of them. And it just fascinated me. So it kind of started me on a journey of understanding the mind. I went to seminars in that to understand personalities and eye movement and different things. And then in the late 90s, moved back to Los Angeles. I went in the military, got out of the military, moved to Southern California. My dad was there. And late 90s, I was getting ready to take over my dad's construction company. And there was an ad in the LA Times that learn how to hypnotize free. So that Monday I called and went down, and they had a 2-week course to teach you how to hypnotize, and went in through it. And I went through the course. I enjoyed it. And they said, hey, we have a full 2-year course here. Do you want to? And I said, absolutely. With absolutely no intention to turning it into a business or pursuing as a business in any way. So that's how I got into hypnosis.
There was maybe a similar sort of phenomenon back in, I think it was maybe the 18th century, maybe it was 19th century, mesmerization. There's a guy, the Dr. Mesmer. I think he was from France, or I can't remember, or German or something like that. And that was a thing. And what is the difference between mesmerization and what is hypnosis, and does it differ from mesmerization?
Well, Dr. Mesmer, what he did is he created, or he would hypnotize people, which was not called hypnosis at that time. He would stare people in the eye, and people would call it getting mesmerized. And that's where the word mesmerized came from. And he would put people into the state of hypnosis, not knowing that it was not describing as hypnosis at that time, but put them in an altered state, a focused state. And it's no different if you're driving from point A to point B, you get to point B and you're thinking back, did I stop at that stop sign, or did I this? Well, you were in a form of hypnosis. If you've ever been highly focused and watching a movie and didn't notice people coming in and sitting down or putting a drink down next to you or whatever, you were in a form of hypnosis. So it's a natural state. On average, a person will go in and out of hypnosis every day and work 5 to 7 times a day. So it happens. PTSD, when a person gets PTSD, they were put into a state of hypnosis for those imprints to be, or data points to be imprinted on their subconscious mind. And once those things are imprinted on the subconscious mind, they become part of the natural you. So if you have triggers or anchors, whether it be sounds or or smells or sights or colors or whatever the case may be that takes you back to that event, that is a hypnotic event.
So who, I guess, I mean, I assume maybe Mesmer, he probably didn't invent this. He may have popularized that. I mean, since you said this is a natural state, probably someone discovered it before him. And I don't know how far it goes back, but the modern concept of hypnotism that we're now calling hypnosis, who came up with that, and what, I guess you said there's some criteria where you're just ultra focused. And certainly, I mean, if our brain couldn't filter out everything that it's inundated, we wouldn't be able to focus. We wouldn't be able to survive because there's so much information coming to us every second of the day, and we have to be able to filter some of that stuff out. And so where does modern hypnosis sort of, I guess the quote unquote scientific, not the show, the entertainment version, where does that take its roots from?
Right. Well, the modern version comes into play in the early 1900s, where you had different people, a psychologist, were taking the process of hypnosis or that and starting to apply it in a medical sense, and it has progressed from that time to this time here, to where we kind of understand how the subconscious works. And again, most of everything that you hear is theory, because there's really no way to validate other than taking brain scans and putting people into the state of hypnosis and looking at the different parts of the brain that are activated. But it's a very natural thing to occur for people to go into, because when you allow yourself, because hypnosis is a destination, it's not something that I do to anybody. What I do is I set up the criteria to lead them into that state, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. The person has to allow it to occur, even though anybody can be hypnotized. There's some people say, well, there's only certain people can be hypnotized, and I don't believe that. Everybody can be hypnotized. It just, you have to set up the criteria correctly in order for that to happen.
You had mentioned that outside of some sort of functional MRI, PET scan or something, I don't know how you're imaging the brain for this. That has been done, I assume. And what do we know about? What do we know about what's going on in the brain when someone is actually into this state of hypnosis?
Well, what we know is that once once a person goes into that state, that here's what happens. From the time that you're born until you're about 10, 11, 12 years old, kids are in a constant state of hypnosis. And what I mean by that is this: they have no conscious veil, they have no consciousness in order to filter out, to prevent from being imprinted. They have to be that way, because they have to learn language skills, survival skills, math skills. They have to learn all these things to become imprints or data points in order for them to create themselves. Now, when they hit 10, 11, 12 years old, the conscious veil starts coming down. And once that veil fully comes down, that becomes the filter to protect the subconscious mind. So nothing is going to get past that unless trauma, high emotional states, or hypnosis takes place to raise that veil, to open up the subconscious mind in order for those imprints to take place. So as we're growing up, most of the challenges that people have today as adults come from the data points that they experienced when they were kids, whatever it is, or after that, the traumas, okay, i.e. PTSD type thing. So in order to change that, in order to change those data points, they have to go into the state of hypnosis. That stuff has to be removed, meaning the subconscious mind has to agree to let those things go. And then once that is vacated, then post-hypnotic suggestions can be put in place to replace those things. And that then becomes the new data points. It becomes a new thought process. And it's no different than, for example, let's say a person has an addiction to carbohydrates. And regardless of what they do, they want to eat well and they eat this, but their subconscious mind keeps dragging them back to the carbohydrates. The body needs the carbohydrates. The body needs carbohydrates. Well, if you can, once you get a person into hypnosis, I can replace those things to replace that craving for for the carbohydrate was something completely different. So if they think about carbohydrates, what they're actually thinking about is what they need or what they want to eat in order to be healthy, and that's the direction that they go. So it's really it's simple, but it takes a lot of understanding of where to move these pieces for it to be effective. I kind of relate it to like a dog chasing a car. The dog chases a car, dog chases a car, dog chases a car. But what's the dog going to do with the car if he catches it? What then? And then putting a person into hypnosis, same thing. Putting a person into hypnosis is the simple thing. I can teach somebody how to do that in an hour and a half. But what do you do with it once you get that?
I'm certainly, I've never, to my knowledge, been hypnotized, or at least maybe I've come into the state of hypnosis, but I've never actively participated in this. I've seen, like, over the years, smoking cessation, weight loss, maybe people dealing with like you mentioned, emotional traumas and stuff like that. What is the utility of hypnosis, and how is it used in modern times? And I see certificates on the wall and stuff like. Is this a formal scientific study that you can go into? Are there degrees in hypnosis now, or hypnosis?
Right. There's been many scientific studies on hypnosis, and there's been a lot of data collected. And actually, hypnosis started out as a medical modality, and over the years, it has just kind of moved out of the medical community, if you will, into more of the entertainment community, because that's what people recognize. But hypnosis can be used for anxiety, depression, panic attacks, confidence, smoking cessation. I have about a 95% success rate when I deal with people in smoking. And I say that with a caveat, because smoking is not an addiction, it's a habit. And when I do the program that I have with people who smoke, there's a process of 3 sessions. Now, back in the day, people used to go to group things in hotels, and there'd be a guy that would put the person in hypnosis and say, 1 session, you become a non-smoker in 1 session, and about 50% of the people, 50% of the people may in fact experience that. But the other 50 to 60% of the people that didn't need more sessions in order to overcome that, because everybody's different. You can't just blanketly perform hypnosis or not perform, but get a person into hypnosis and expect it to have lasting results.
What are the requirements for hypnosis? I guess setting. Time. How do you? What's required to get somebody in a state of hypnosis?
The only 2 things I need is a person giving me permission to lead them into that state of hypnosis, and the other thing is them willing to go. That's it.
So no.
If a person sits down with me and says, "You know what? I'm here because my wife told me to come, and I thought I'd try it." Well, at that point there, we're done. I'm not going to take them as a client, because they have to want to make the changes. They can't do it for anybody else. It's like anything in life. You have to do it for yourself. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I often see, like, you guys on, people on TV hypnotizing people, and they start barking like a dog, and, they just tell them to do whatever goofy stuff, and they do it. And it seems like, oh, that sounds like a neat trick. But from a actually helping someone's quality of life, it's obviously maybe a different thing, but is it the same thing? Is it, hey, I can tell you to bark like a dog and act like a fool, but I can also tell you to do good things that'll last. And how does it last longer? Because it seems like when these people come out of hypnosis, could they be like, for the rest of their life, they're going to bark like a dog every time there's a trigger word? I can't imagine how durable it might be.
Well, you've asked a couple of things there. So let me start off with this. A few years ago, I was outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, in Boulder City. I was giving a talk to a Rotary Club, and there were about 300 people there. And I was there to talk about hypnosis and da. So the gentleman introduced me, and way in the back, this guy was standing on his chair, waving his arms, and just was excited. He was excited to be there. He had a question for me. It turned out he had a question for me. So I asked him, I said, look, I said, before we get going, somebody's in the back wanting my attention. So, sir, what can I help you with? And he said, well, I want to know if you can help me. I go, well, what is the problem? He goes, 3 years ago, at that point, I went to a hypnosis show in Vegas, and I got on stage, and the guy hypnotized me, and he hypnotized me that every time I go into the MGM Grand Hotel to the lobby, I would find the nearest chair, stand on the chair, and yell, "The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming!" Now, he said that was all fun and everything, but I got to tell you, he says, first time I went in the MGM, I literally went to the chair and stood on it and yelled, "The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming!" He says, I cannot go into the MGM Grand today without that feeling of having to do that. And he goes, my question for you is, he says, can you help me? I go, absolutely. Absolutely, I can help you. Bring your checkbook. But the point is that what the hypnotist did not do is he did not release that person from that post-hypnotic suggestion before he left out of there. Now, if I'm working with a person on weight loss, for example, and I say, and under the old model that I worked with, eat less, move more, I would tell people, I want you to park as far away from the store. When you go out to a store, I want you to park as far away out in the parking lot as you can. That's safe for you, and walk. Okay. Now, if you do not do that, if you park closer than whatever it was, a few stalls away from the entrance of the store, here's what's going to happen. And I would give them a post-hypnotic suggestion with that exact thing and say, you are going to want to skip around your car singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb, Mary Had a Little Lamb" if you park closer than this to that store. That's what I would do. Now, for the most part, people would not park close to the store. I had one person call me a few days after, and I answered the phone. They said, "I hate you." I go, "Excuse me?" They said, "I hate you." I go, who is this, and what are you talking about? "This is so and so. I park closer to the store, and I started skipping around the car singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" until I caught myself, got in my car and moved it back out, and then I was fine. So once the subconscious mind has an imprint, it will not let that go. It will act on that. It will not stop. It's like the Terminator, because the subconscious mind's number one priority is to protect you. And it protects you based on the information and the imprints that you have, right, wrong, or indifferent. If they serve you, then that's great. But if they work against you, and that's why people go through life and they go, I want different results, but I find myself doing the same thing over and over and over, and trying to get those different results. And that does not work. You have to change what you do to get the different results. And that's where the subconscious mind comes in.
So, you have maybe this compulsion to stand in the middle of the MGM and yell "The redcoats are coming," or dance around your car. I mean, are you powerless to say, "Hey, I've got this compulsion, but I can deal with it, although it's irritating"? I mean, you should be able to overcome that, I assume, correct?
Well, you can make it. Now, here's where it comes in. You can make a conscious decision saying, "I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that." But because you've done that, that is still in the back of your mind that you have to do it. But you're using sheer willpower to say, "I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that." And at some point, willpower is not going to work, because willpower is designed for short-term bursts. You cannot sustain willpower for any length of time, because you will go into what I call emotional shutdown because of the effort that it takes. And pretty soon it just gets up and you just throw your hands up and say, "I can't do this anymore." Now, what is the alternative to that? Is you just don't put yourself in that position.
Okay. Let me ask you, before we get into maybe how this is beneficial, but could this be, could a sort of a malevolent hypnotist hypnotize somebody into doing something that would be harmful to them or other people? Like, say, "Hey, I want you to go beat people up or rob a bank or assassinate somebody." Has that ever been done? And does that actually happen? Could it happen?
Well, the governments have always tried to use hypnosis for their purposes, but here's the thing. If you have a certain moral compass, you cannot be hypnotized to go against that moral compass. For example, if I put a person into hypnosis and they're deep into hypnosis, and I tell them, look, when you come out of hypnosis, you're going to give me your ATM card, and when you give me your ATM card, you're going to give me your PIN number with that ATM card. Now, if it's not against, if that's against their moral compass, is what they wouldn't normally do, they're going to come out and go, I'm not going to give you my ATM card. However, if you give me 100 people, out of that 100 people, I will find 10 or 15 people that will do exactly that, because they're not set up that way on a subconscious level. I will find those 10 or 15 people out of that 100 people. Now, there's a fine line of doing hypnosis with a person and being manipulative of a person. And you have to know what that line is, and you have to not go against that line. I've had people approach me about missing memories. They will come to me and say, I don't remember most of my childhood. Can you help me recoup those memories? And my response to that is, yeah, probably. I'm not going to do it, but I can probably do it. Well, why won't you do it? Well, look, the good Lord in his infinite wisdom, if you've got missing memory, they're there for a reason. And my question is to myself is, if I do this, am I causing more problems for you that I'm going to solve? I don't know that, so therefore I'm just not going to go there. Now, my suggestion is the good Lord put our eyes in front of our head, not the back of our head, for a reason. That's to look forward. Let's start from right now. Now, my deal is with you is this. Let's go forward. Let's solve the issues. Let's get over what you've got going. And then when we're done, if you come to me and say, hey, look, I'm a lot better, and I'll be able to tell, I really want to go out and explore those missing memories. I'll tell them, look, I will do that. But I have never, ever, ever, ever had a person come back and ask me to do that. Because once they get past that, and once that stuff is released, there's no value for them to go back to explore that. It doesn't matter, because it's not gonna matter to anything. It's not gonna have an impact on them going forward. It could have a negative impact, but I'm not going to participate in it.
You said at the beginning here that one of the prerequisites of being put in a hypnotic state is the willingness to do so. Like if I say, hey, I ain't getting hypnotized, I'm not going to participate, whatever, you wouldn't be able to hypnotize me, I assume. Are there people, like, can you say like women are easier to hypnotize than men, kids are easier than adults, older, younger? Is there any sort of way this shakes out, or is it pretty much everybody that's willing to has the same probability of being hypnotized?
Everybody. I mean, in the last, I want to throw out last 15 years, that I have never not had a person sit in front of me that I could not hypnotize, except for, but understand this, is I do an interview process with people before I take them as clients. And I weed those people out that are not going to, because I'm asking certain questions. I want certain answers to those questions. I'm listening to the words that they use, and I weed those people out, because I turn away 10 to 15% of the people that approach me about doing sessions.
I see.
Because it's just not going to work for them. I'm not the right person. They're not ready for it, whatever the case may be.
There's a question. I'm not sure what this is. It says, is EMDR a form of hypnosis? I don't even know what that term means. Maybe you're familiar with that. EMDR. I'm not sure what that stands for.
That's a different modality, and it has to do with eye movement and desensitizing. It's just a different modality. I know a little bit about it. I don't know a whole lot about it. But no, it's not hypnosis.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I mean, I've seen like dissociative eye movements when like when I was working as a burn, working in a burn critical care unit on kids, we would give these kids ketamine so we could do bandage dressings, and we would see dissociative eye movement based on being, subject to ketamine. So I don't know, again, enough about that and hypnosis, how it relates, but all right. So, I guess where the carnivore part, where you, because you're a carnivore hypnotist. So what is the relevance of that?
Well, here's what happened. Back in September of last year, I was 332 pounds, thereabouts. And I had tried everything to lose weight. And as an ex-athlete, martial art, I know how to train. And I had tried to go back to my training regimen. It wasn't working. And I thought I was eating the correct way, cut out, the processed carbohydrates, but still eating the vegetables and eating this and eating that, and it just wasn't working. And I went to the VA and I told my primary care doctor, I said, look, we got to figure something out, because I had gone through their MOVE program. That didn't work. Okay. And I said, we got to do something. So I was exploring before September of last year, doing the gastric bypass and even getting on the different pills. And my primary care doctor says, well, we can try that, but VA has certain criteria for that. And so we started the process. And my blood pressure was getting out of whack. Just everything was going to, as the old saying is, hell in a handbasket. So my wife had been pushing me to start carnivore for a month or so, because we live on a ranch. We have our own cows. We process them for our use, and we sell them in pigs and chickens. And we have all the components. So I told my wife, I said, well, all right, I got nothing else to do. I'm waiting on this gastric bypass approval. I'll do it until then. So the second week, September, I started that. Within the first 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. Now, granted, most of it was water weight. I understood that. But once I lost that 15 pounds, I kind of went down into the rabbit hole, as people say, and I discovered I discovered Dr. Chafee, Dr. Berry, and I started pulling all this information in, and at the same time continuing to eat carnivore, 2 meals a day. We had our first meal at 11 o'clock in the morning, had the last meal before 5, and that's how we did it. And going through that process, by the time I got to mid-February, I had lost right at about 80 pounds. I mean, I lost a significant amount of weight just eating carnivore. Now, as a hypnotist, I would help people with their weight. I had a weight loss program, and they would come to me and say, you know what, I'm following this diet and following that diet. And I say, okay. And they would come in with their diet, and I would put together my program around their diet, and they'd lose a few pounds. And it could be get them away from carbohydrates or sugars or late night snacks or overeating or whatever the case may be, any of the various components. But they always gain the weight back. So, and I got to the point where I just wouldn't work with people losing the weight. One, because I couldn't get my weight under control. And two, whatever they were bringing to the table was not sustainable. So it wasn't until the carnivore that I started that it was a sustainable way of eating, but there were people that were still failing at carnivore. So all I did was apply what I did with other people around the carnivore way of eating to get rid of the sugar addiction, the carbohydrate addiction, the overeating, the nighttime snacks, all of these different data points that they had problem with. And everybody's different, because, people will say, I don't have a problem with carbohydrate and give that up. It's the sugar that I can't get away with. And I would work with them on sugar, and we would get them away from that. And then all of a sudden the carnivore diet would kick in and they would start having results, and they felt better about it because it became a natural part of their subconscious mind to eat that way, because we've been programmed to eat 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, and you got to have this, you got to have that, and don't get up until you eat all the food on your plate from a kid, and that people still carry that with them. Get rid of that nonsense. And they had more success with it. So that's where and when a person wants to work with me now in a weight loss program, they have to agree that they're going to follow the carnivore way of eating, period. If they don't, I'm not the guy for them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I guess if in years past you're hypnotizing people to eat the food pyramid, which I don't know, maybe that's what you did. Say,
exactly.
Eat low fat, eat grains, and maybe they were doing it, but it wasn't working for them. And now you're hypnotizing them into a more of a low carb carnivore approach. Let me ask you, because you said you can't go against your moral compass, but what about how do you overcome hunger? Because hunger seems to be as primitive of a driver, maybe more so than moral compass. You know, if I'm hungry and you tell me I'm going to hypnotize you not to eat and just be hungry, I question whether you could overcome that, because hunger is, like I said, that's very reptilian brain. I mean, basic brainstem activity. So how do we deal with that aspect of it? Or is it just, hey, let's eat the right food?
Well, no, that can absolutely be overcome. And what happens is there has to be a reconnection of the mind-body connection. Okay? Because the body, if you eat and you eat past being full and you continue to eat, there's a disconnect between the mind, body, and connection. And at some point you're going to eat so much that the brain, that it finally connects to the subconscious mind and says, oh my God, I can't eat anymore. Well, that's the mind-body connection. It's just that it's taking place not at the correct time. So hunger is nothing more than getting people off the clock, reconnecting to the mind-body, and to what and understand that what they're experiencing is not hunger, but a time. It's like a person who smokes. Because smoking is not an addiction, it's a habit. When a person wakes up in the morning and their feet touch the floor and they're a smoker, they have a process of smoking. They get up, they get the coffee, they have their first cigarette, they go out on the back porch, go out on the front porch, they have their shrine set up back there, they're all good, then they get in the car, they drive. At lunch, they go, oh, it's time, lunch, it's time to have a cigarette. So everything is timed. Everything is connected to what they do throughout the day. But people have different schedules during the week than they do on the weekend. So they adjust to the weekend schedule. And hunger is the same exact thing. It's a trigger of time. And that can be changed very, very easily.
Let me just ask you, because you said you've worked with obviously people over the years for how many decades or whatever doing hypnotism, and you said you could hypnotize me through this if the setting were right. I'm interested in it. I'm not currently right now, to be honest, because I'm trying to do an interview. But if someone were wanting to sort of say, hey, Wayne, I'd like to be hypnotized so that I could maybe be more compliant with carnivore or whatever, how does that work? I mean, Zoom call, and they have to be in a quiet room, or how do you set that up? Just like walk me through one of your patient accounts. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on basically that's essentially what it is, but there's a little bit more to it. When I take on a client, they get information from me on what to do prior to their first session. They get instructions on how to set up their room or where they're going to be, whether it's going to be in a room that they're not normally in, or whether they're going to be in the living room or whatever. I tell them how to set that up, what I want to do, how I position them for the camera. A lot of people, they'll use their cell phone as their camera. And I'll, once they become a client, I'll even go so far as to order them a stand for their camera so it's delivered directly to them, so they can position their camera, their smartphone, in such a way that I can see what I need to see of them. And then once that happens, then at that point there, it's just following some simple instructions, listening to the sound of my voice, and just allowing things to happen. Don't help me, don't hinder me, just allow it to happen. I almost want you to imagine yourself daydreaming about something. And as long as you allow that to happen, then I'm going to lead you into that process of hypnosis. And I'm going to watch the body. I'm going to watch the eyes. I'm going to watch certain things or that. I tell you what, do you have time for a quick exercise?
Yeah, well, we got about another 20 some minutes left here. So
okay, this will take about a minute and a half. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to you see that?
The yellow face thing? Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Can you see? What is that?
Well, it looks like a yellow plastic thing. I don't know.
Yeah, what is it? What kind of fruit is it?
Oh, it looks like a lemon. Okay, yeah.
There you go, a lemon. That's exactly what it is. I want you to focus on that lemon.
Okay.
And once you think that you have a good picture of that lemon, I want you to go ahead and close your eyes for a moment.
Okay.
I want you to imagine that lemon. I want you to picture that lemon in your mind's eye. So picture it, imagine, or pretend that you can see it.
Yeah.
And once you have that, just nod your head yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect. I want you to imagine that I'm reaching up in your mind's eye, and I'm going to take that lemon, and I want to put it between my thumb and my forefinger, much like how I held the lemon up to you to begin with. And I'm going to take a knife, and I'm going to cut that lemon. And when I cut it, I want you to notice all of the lemony oils jumping off the skin of that lemon. And then all of a sudden, they start permeating the air, that you can actually start imagining that you can smell that lemon. But as I cut that lemon, the juice from that lemon starts running down that knife because it's a very juicy, juicy lemon. And then I slice it again, and I slice out what you would think is a wedge of lemon, almost like you'd get in your IC when you go to this restaurant or your water. And I have that wedge of lemon in between my thumb and my forefinger, and I give it a little squeeze, and it's got that juice. But I want you to now take that lemon wedge from me and hold it between your thumb and forefinger. And as you take it, I want you to squeeze it a little bit. I want you to feel that juice. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring that lemon every so slowly on a count of 5. And by the time I get to 5, your tongue's going to come out and you're going to touch that lemon with your tongue. 1, closer and closer. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And as you touch it, imagine that explosion of tartness in your mouth. You may even find that you start salivating and you have to swallow a little bit because you're salivating so much. And now go ahead and open your eyes.
Okay.
Did you experience that lemon at all?
Well, I was salivating a little bit. I mean, I can't remember specifically taking it, but I mean, there's this sort of cephalic phase of digestion that does occur when you see and smell and think about food. So yeah, I did notice a little bit more moisture in my mouth for sure.
Absolutely. And the reason being is because, now understand this, is that exercise had nothing to do with hypnosis. Okay. It had everything to do with bringing that experience that you've already experienced. You know what it tastes like, you know what it is, and you bring that back to the forefront of the conscious mind, and you can experience that reaction of that lemon. Now, the interesting thing of you is when I do that, about 60% of the people that when I ask them to do that, they do not reach up and take that lemon. They do not make the hand movement. They are just static. 40% of the people do that. And when 40% of the people do that, I'm thinking in my mind, what I'm saying is, I got you. I got you.
Uh-oh.
I got you.
I'm in danger now.
I got you.
Let me ask you a question. Like I think of like Star Wars, where, Obi-Wan Kenobi goes up and these are not the droids you're looking for. Is that possible? Like, could you hypnotize somebody in a matter of under a minute? Is that conceivably possible? Or
absolutely. There's a thing called rapid induction, and some of the street hypnotists will use rapid inductions to stop people on the street. Hey, have you ever been hypnotized? Would you like to be? And they're doing a little bit of pre questions before it, and then in a matter of just a few seconds, they can drop them down into hypnosis very quickly. Now, for my purposes, I take a little bit longer, but as each session progresses, because I do a process of sessions over a period of weeks and days, by the time we get to about the third or the fourth session, I can have that person drop into hypnosis in a matter of just a few seconds because they have a yardstick to measure it by. Because the subconscious mind enjoys it, and once they go back to it, they drop down and they go back into that state. And it's the same thing with meditation. I've had people approach me and says, you know what, I've tried to meditate for years and I've just never felt that I've been able to do it. Well, okay. So I hypnotize them, drop them down. The subconscious mind now has a yardstick where they understand that they can apply a meditation to that feeling. I teach them how to do self-hypnosis, and then their meditation world changes from that point forward. It grows. It gets more intense. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you go into hypnosis, that is a destination. When a person goes into prayer, that is a destination. Those two destinations are the same place. you're going into the subconscious mind. The difference is in intent. With intent of hypnosis, you're going through to change certain things within the subconscious mind, to release things, to settle things out. With prayer, you're going into, and your intent is you get a closer to connection with your creator, with God, with Peter Pan, whatever your thought process or your perspective is. So it's the same exact thing, just different intent. And when people start understanding that and make that connection, they go, oh, now I start to understand.
Is there a, I guess, if you've been hypnotized once, do subsequent sessions make it easier to become hypnotized? Is it something where you just it's almost a skill that you acquire, or a relaxation, maybe mental relaxation? I don't know how you would describe that, but.
Well, you can use it for that. You can, once you go into hypnosis and once you understand how you can utilize that state for yourself, you can drop yourself into that state. For example, if you're tired and you need to get some energy, drop down into hypnosis for about 30 seconds. You come back up. You'll be as if you had a 2-hour nap.
So that points to a question in the chat here about self-hypnosis. I've heard that term described, so I assume it exists. What does that mean, or is it possible?
Well, as I said in the beginning, all hypnosis, even what I do, is self-hypnosis. It's nothing that I do to a person. It's what they allow to have happen. And all they're doing is once I lead them into hypnosis, they then have a yardstick to compare it by, and then they can utilize self-hypnosis or drop themselves into hypnosis, because I give them certain tools and certain ways to get into hypnosis for themselves. But until then, it's really a hard thing. Can it be done? Yeah, you can get a book, you can read through it, and if you're smart enough, if you're diligent enough, you could probably perform hypnosis on yourself and have it semi-effective. But I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it sounds like, it could be fun and useful. And, obviously, do you get people that just do it for fun? Do you ever go to a party and say, I'm going to hypnotize you and do the goofy stuff, like the entertainment stuff, or do you mostly just do it as a therapeutic intervention?
I have done that in the past. I have, when I first decided to take hypnosis and use it as a business, and it was because I was in between projects in different parts of the country. I would actually approach the Rotary Club or Knights of Columbus, and I would do charity events, and I do the comedy hypnosis shows for people, and raise money and so on and so forth. And I had a lot of fun doing that. It was a lot of fun. But after the show, people would always come up to me and go, hey, that was really interesting. That was fun. But can you help me with ... And I go, yeah. And then I started working with people on those things. And then I kind of migrated from doing the entertainment aspect of it to helping people. Not that I have anything against the entertainment thing. It was fun. It was just not my, as much as I like to be the center of attention, it was just not my thing to do.
What you said, obviously we've talked a little about weight loss, smoking cessation. What are the things that typically you hypnotize people for?
I would say that about 80% of my clients are anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Is what it comes down to. And the reason they search me out is they've been to the doctors, they've taken the pills, they've gone through everything else. They've even done talk therapy it could be for months or it could be for years, and nothing is working. And then they'll come to me and say, you know what, Mr. Walker, I don't know where else to turn. Somebody said hypnosis. I looked you up. There you are. Can you help me? And after I interview them, I can either tell them, yeah, I can probably help you and get you past this nonsense, or say, no, you're not ready for it, or you're not somebody that qualifies for what I do. But for the people that I work with, if I take them as a client, you can bet $1 that we are going to have some level of success with their anxiety, depression, and panic attacks during our time together. Absolutely. And the reason being is because once you change the natural self and the subconscious mind accepts that, they will not be the same person in 30 days. It's an impossibility. Impossible. Now, can they go back to the way they were? Yes, they can. As long if they browbeat the subconscious mind back into submission and drag it back to their old self. But the chances of that happening are low. And the reason being is because I've already identified that could be a propensity that they have, and I'm already taking steps to prevent that from happening.
Why? So I guess, hypnotism still remains relatively obscure as far as a treatment. I mean, I don't know of any sort of, I'm just wondering, because we have so many people suffering from obesity, so many people suffering from depression, anxiety. I mean, the numbers are enormous, as you probably are aware. If this is so efficacious, why isn't it more mainstream? I guess that would be the question.
Well, here's the thing. When I take a client, my client is with me for maybe, let's just extrapolate it out and go for the distance, maybe 9 or 10 sessions. That's it. This is not a long, drawn out process. Most clients on an average are with me about 7 sessions. And that's it. Now, when you take and go to talk therapy and they're going once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they're doing it for 3 and 4 years, 5 years, well, something's wrong. Something is wrong. And the reason, and the reason that, or the answer to your question is it comes down to money. It comes down to bills. That's what it comes down to. And it's unfortunate. But I would also submit to you that there's probably more medical doctors out there that are looking at or working with a hypnotist to send their clients to than you would guess. I'm part of a group of hypnotists, and we talk about this very thing all the time. And there are some medical doctors that are very open to it. I've even gone so far as to go out and do demonstrations and that for doctors' offices, cancer patients, people who are experiencing having cancer treatments and stuff like that. But look, when you have a drug trial, and that drug trial has to have a placebo group and a group that is on the drug, and the placebo group outperforms the drug, what is that? That's the subconscious mind. That's the belief that they're going to get better by taking the sugar pill, even though they know they're not, even though they don't know, they may not know that they're taking a sugar pill. So the subconscious mind has that power over us. It can block out pain. Pain can be taken, and you have to be careful with pain, because pain is the body's way of letting you know at times that something is wrong. And if I take that pain completely away, then that takes away a tool that the body has to communicate with, say, hey, there's something wrong here. But I've even hypnotized my wife to undergo a medical procedure without anesthesia when she went in. Now, the doctor looked at me like I had 3 eyes when I told him that she didn't want to use the anesthesia. And he says, okay, what do we do? I said, well, just let me go back with her on the table, because I already preconditioned her, and I dropped her down in the hypnosis. She went down there, and he goes, now what? I said, well, do whatever you're going to do. And it was something taking a biopsy, a needle on her neck or something to that effect. He goes, are you sure you want to let her do that? I said, trust me, just do this. He goes, okay. So the nurse took me back out to the waiting room. And about 15 minutes later, the doctor came out, and he goes, well, we're done. And she didn't flinch. She didn't say out. She didn't do anything. He says, but I think there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? He goes, she's not moving. I go, oh, well, let me back in there. I'll bring her up. And as soon as we go back in there, I counted her up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open. I'm feeling great. And the first thing she did is lean forward and goes, is it done? That is the power of the subconscious mind.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, some people say a placebo effect can maybe as much as 30% or something like that. So there's clearly
whatever it is, placebo effect works. There is a placebo effect. Okay. Zig Ziglar, one of them used to say, it says, whatever the mind can conceive, you can achieve. So you have to believe in it. You have to have belief in it. And that's where hypnosis comes in.
Has the field of hypnosis evolved the last, maybe with more insight, with, access to brain scanning and, imaging and stuff like that? I mean, are there things that like exercise, caffeine, alcohol? I mean, I don't know. Are there things that facilitate this to make it more efficient? I mean, if people are studying it, you assume they get better at it and they learn more about it and what's the most efficient way and effective way. And some things may not be as effective. What sort of advances have been made over the last half century or so, or any? I don't know.
I don't think that there's any advances needed. I think, that when people start looking for loopholes in things is where they start getting sidetracked. Decide looking for loopholes in the carnivore diet or the keto diet, because I had done the keto diet in the past and there were too many loopholes in it. It just, it still lost a few pounds in it, but it didn't ultimately work for me. But I think if you just approach hypnosis from the very pure point of dealing with the subconscious mind and allowing the subconscious mind to accept the changes, that you're gonna do fine. There's none of the other stuff that's needed to enhance or this. I just don't think that's needed.
Here's a funny question: you think you could hypnotize someone who is on a vegan diet that into a carnivore diet? Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, here now, if their moral code is to be a vegan, they're not going to accept that post-hypnotic suggestion to eat meat. It's not going to happen. However, if there's an inkling of that in their being, then yes. Because, for example, when you go to a talk therapist and you're there and they say, well, tell me your issue. Look, as human nature is we don't tell everybody everything. We just don't do it. Not going to happen. And that's why hypnosis is powerful, because they don't have to tell me anything. As a matter of fact, I don't want to hear all the dirty details. But the one person they cannot lie to once they get into hypnosis is themselves. They will have to deal with that in their own subconscious mind and let that go or hold on to it. And there's a process for that. And then the vegan, if there's that there, if they have that there, and I put a post-hypnotic suggestion is, look, when you come out of this, I'm going to count you up. When you get 5, you're going to have an amazing desire to have a big, juicy steak. And on the way home, you're going to stop at one of the restaurants and have a steak or whatever the case may be. Now, if that's in there, I can guarantee you that before they get home, they're going to stop and have a steak.
Interesting. Yeah, you don't have to hypnotize me to eat a steak. I can tell you. That's already hard. That's already hardwired in for me. Well, I'll tell you what, Wayne, we're coming to the end of our time. It's been fun chatting about this stuff. Tell me, if you said you're down in South Texas, but I mean, if somebody wanted to avail themselves of your services, how would they go about it?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.rmhypnosis.net. They can reach out to me email, which is wayne@rmhypnosis.net. They can do a search for my YouTube channel on YouTube, which is Reflective Mind Hypnosis, or Carnivore Hypnotist. They can probably find me there. So that's how they can get. If they want to call me, 956-300-4986. Email, and that is probably the best. If people need help or that, I would love to talk to them. I can direct them and that. So,
and I assume, yeah. I know this seems silly, but I assume you have to be able to speak English to do this. I mean, assume whatever. Could you hypnotize somebody without speaking to them?
No, that's a funny thing. People, I live down here in South Texas, and a good portion of people do not speak English.
Right, sure.
They understand it, but they don't speak English. I have had a handful of people come in that I've helped, and they brought an interpreter, and I have hypnotized that person or gotten them into hypnosis through the interpreter, with the interpreter knowing absolutely nothing, just following my instructions.
Interesting. Awesome.
And the results have been very successful. Because you have to understand something. hypnosis is everywhere. If you listen to politicians, they're using hypnotic language. If you're watching TV preachers, they're using hypnotic language. If you look at what's going on with when advertisers are advertising, those are all hypnotic cues. They don't do things by accident. There's a lot of research that goes into that. They take colors. Red is the number one color. Red causes you to eat more. Why do you think red is so prevalent in restaurants? Look at the logos on a lot of restaurants. Red.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff on color and food, and also music and food, and it's there is some sort of, it makes you overeat or eat more, and that type
Absolutely.
of stuff.
So sure. The only color that's not natural in the food world, if you will, is blue. Even though they have blueberries and they're actually blue, but the color blue lends itself on a subconscious level to being bad, moldy.
Interesting. Wayne, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
I've had a
It's been
blast.
fascinating. Anyway, I'm going to hit stop here, and